I remember this girl ends up grabbing my wrist and she ends up taking me to my backyard. And I'm not gonna lie to you, I never go to my backyard, like for any reason whatsoever, because I'm usually a homebody staying at home playing video games. She pulls me behind the shed and said, Baba, take it off. And at that moment, I knew that me and her were gonna do the Devil's Tango in my shed. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba, and welcome back to another insane story. Now, today's story all takes place back when I was in grade 9, and I'm not gonna lie to you, in grade 9, I was kind of an introvert, but at the same time, still trying to get my game up. If you guys don't know what I mean by that, basically what I'm trying to say was that I was mostly a homebody, wanting to stay home all the time, and not really go out and play video games. But at the same time, I was a major hopeless romantic, meaning that if I had the opportunity to fall in love with a girl and basically me and her do the Devil's Tango, I was gonna do it no matter what the girl looked like. I know it sounds really bad, but I didn't have standards because I thought, you know, love is blind, except that's very not true. But going on with the story, I remember there was one time my grade 9 year where there was a girl that was actually really interested in me. Now, there was a rumor throughout the school that she was interested in me, but obviously for me, like, I didn't really know how to go about it, or basically, I guess, you know, in a way, ask her out. To the point where I remember as I was sitting in my language arts class, the girl that apparently liked me ended up walking up to me. She walked up to me, slammed her hand on my desk saying, Baba, I was wondering, what are you doing tonight? I'm just gonna be at home. Why? Well, like, I was wondering, do you want to like do something? Like, we should like do something together, you know? Like, I don't know. I'm just asking, like, do you want to like do stuff? At this moment, I kind of tilt my head confused on like what she was trying to say to me. But then one of my friends from far away ends up saying, bro, she's trying to ask you out, dummy. And at that moment, I looked at her and said, I mean, yeah, we can, you know, hang out and do stuff if you want. She ended up basically being all happy and stuff, and she walked away without even planning what in the world we were doing. But let's just say when after school came around, I knew this girl had an idea, because right when the bell rang and all of us were standing in front of the school and I was getting ready to basically walk home, because at the time I did not have a car yet, she ended up walking up behind me saying, Bubba, I'm right here. Where are we going? Well, I don't really know. I didn't really have anything planned but to go home. Oh, you want to go to your house? I mean, I thought you never ask. Well, yeah, but my whole family's home. Oh, I see how you work. Okay, let's go. And me being so confused on these responses that she was giving me, we ended up basically walking together to my house, and the whole time she kept talking about like her friend drama and all this stuff, and in a way kind of trauma dumping me as well, which was really out of pocket for girls to do right away when you first meet a guy on the first date, I guess this was. But when we finally got to my house, I remember out of nowhere, I ended up knocking on the door, and my mom opens it and she sees me with the girl, and she is very confused. She's so confused to the point where she looks at me and says, Bubba, who is this? Oh, this is just a friend from school, Mom. We're just hanging out, I guess. Okay, well, just leave your door open. I don't want you guys closing the door. You understand? Yeah, no, I understand, Mom. Don't worry about it. And we ended up going inside my bedroom, and right as we walk inside, right away, this girl decides to close the door, and my mom sees that and instantly walks in, opens the door, saying in firm English, don't close the door. And she ends up walking away. I remember the girl looks at me and she's like, oh, so like, are we not like allowed any privacy? Well, I'm not really allowed to have girls over, I guess, is what I said. When I'm not gonna lie to you, I've snuck girls over all the time back when I was in grade 9, but I guess around this time I wasn't really, like I said, really into that phase. But going on, I remember I ended up just sitting on my desk playing video games as she sat on my bed, and she got so bored and was on the phone the entire time talking to like different girls and all this stuff. And then finally she ends up looking at me saying, Bubba, I want to do something. I'm really bored. Okay, well, what do you want to do? Well, I mean, we can close the door and like, you know, I don't think that's a good idea. My mom's home and she would not want that. Okay, well, what do you want to do then? I don't know. Like, I don't really know if there's anywhere private in my house to do anything. At this moment, I remember this girl ends up standing up and she just walks out of my room. And me, I thought she probably just ended up leaving my house, which I felt really bad about at first. But at the same time, this girl was automatically a weirdo anyway, so I wasn't really losing. But then I remember like 10 minutes go by, and after my Call of Duty deathmatch, she ends up walking into my room saying, Baba, I need you to come with me. What? Why? What'd you do? Oh, nothing. I just have an idea. Come on, follow me. I remember this girl, she ends up grabbing me by my wrist and she ends up dragging me outside to my backyard. And me, I never go to my backyard. I'm gonna say this right now. Like, me going to my backyard was a really rare occurrence. Because once again, I was more of an indoor kid, a homebody, you know, basically a person that doesn't really touch grass. And as I'm outside with this girl, I end up seeing her come close to me and try to make out with me. But I ended up pulling back saying, whoa, what are you doing? My parents' bedroom window is literally right there. Okay, well, follow me. She ends up grabbing my wrist and she ends up opening my dad's shed that no one's allowed into, by the way. But he had a pretty big shed in our backyard back when I was younger. And right away, when I ended up seeing this girl open the shed, she pulls me in and she says to me, well, are we allowed to close this door? I end up closing the door right away when when we were inside. And I'm like, bro, if my dad sees us in here, I'm gonna get in serious trouble. Well, then we just have to be quiet. And at that moment, this girl gets closer to me, and me and her, we actually ended up doing the devil's tango in the shed. Like, this was so mind-boggling to me. And honestly, like, it was super dark in there. And I think it even got to the point where my eggplant actually ended up hitting the lawnmower. But I am not joking. It was so weird. And me and her, like, we kept like making noise in the shed to the point where out of nowhere, my dad ends up coming to the backyard, and he ends up seeing the shed kind of like shaking, because it wasn't one of those like super like metal sheds. Like, it was just a basic like plastic shed that my dad got from Walmart. But I remember I ended up hearing his voice saying, "Who's in the shed? I think there's a raccoon in my shed, honey." And at that moment, I ended up looking at the girl, and she looks at me straight into my eyes, and she starts freaking out. She's like, "Oh my goodness, like, is there like a back window or something we can get out of here from?" And I look at this girl, and I'm like, bro, this is like a small shed. Like, you would clearly see if there was a window to leave out of. So me and her, we start freaking out to the point where I kind of like ended up looking in between the door of like the shed to see if my dad was around. And I ended up not seeing him at all. So I opened the shed and closed it right away on the girl that was still in there. And at that moment, my dad ends up coming out with a weapon to basically try to get rid of the raccoon and scare it off. But when he ended up seeing me, he said, "Bubba, what were you doing in my shed?" "Oh, I was gonna mow the lawn." When I said that, my dad looked at me and smiled as he had a weapon in his hand, and he's like, "Okay, we'll pull out the lawnmower, mow the lawn." At that moment, I remember I ended up like freaking out because I didn't want to open the shed in front of him. So I told him to just go inside and relax, and that I'll mow the lawn. And that's exactly what he did. He went inside, he basically turned on the TV and started watching his favorite show. And I ended up pulling out the lawnmower, started mowing the lawn. But as I was mowing it, I ended up telling the girl to get the hell out of my house so that I wouldn't get in trouble. She ended up right away leaving and started running back home. And I ended up having to mow the lawn. But then also right after I had finished mowing the lawn, my mom ends up coming out, seeing me mow it, and she came out to the backyard saying, "Bubba, why are you mowing the lawn?" "Oh, I just wanted to be nice to dad." "Okay, well, where's the girl you had over?" At that moment, my dad also comes out to the backyard to see how I was doing, and he heard my mom say a girl. So my dad looks at my mom and says, "Wait, what do you mean a girl came over?" And well, they ended up kind of putting the pieces together. But at the same time, since I mowed the lawn, I guess they weren't that angry at me, if you know what I mean. But it was a major lesson learned to never do it in the shed. Not only is it gross, but on top of that, you don't want your eggplant hitting the lawnmower. But if you guys would do what I did, then follow for more embarrassing stories just like this one. Peace out, guys.